Good morning, good leaders, and good morning, Pak David too.
Good morning to you. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for providing the time to come to this episode of podcast for my consultancy firm, Pfizer HR. So, Pak David, tell me a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I have spent a large part of my 30 years of working experience doing nothing but everything in human resource management work, spanning from corporate HR to working in the public sector to working in different countries such as in China, in India, and in Southeast Asia, and also frequently spending my HR experience into HR consulting work.
Okay.
And then today, in an adjunct lecturer with the Singapore Nanyang Polytechnic for the last about 11 years today.
Wow, you've been lecturing for 11 years, for the past 11 years?
Yes, largely yes, but more on an adjunct
I see.
level. Yep.
I see. Okay. So you have been in various sides of the table. You have been in corporate as the practitioner and then as HR consultant, if I understand that correctly.
That's correct.
Yeah. And not only in Singapore, but also in various countries, including Southeast Asia, India, and China, and now lecturing. And the lecture is also related to topics on HR.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Okay. So if I remember correctly, about 1990s, there was a lot of talk about HR need to be a strategic partner, and then maybe about 10-15 years ago, there was also a book titled Beyond HR. Some big companies or multinational corporations now have also positioned for chief HR officer. But how does actually HR contribute or add value to the performance of a company, of an organization?
Well, to put it in a gist, 20 years ago, of course, we come across this very big term called strategic HR, or HR should be a strategic partner in an organization. I believe, of course, even up to today, this term or this terminology is still very relevant. What is different today, in my opinion, is that the world has changed. In fact, the workplace has become very different as in the past. Maybe let me give you one example. Probably 20 years ago, because of globalization, so the workplace may become more and more complex. So what that translates to human resource management means that, hey, you want to make sure that the roles are defined, responsibilities of each department are clearly spelled out. Everyone knows what they are supposed to do. So as a result, back then, 20 years ago, you will find human resource management trying to manage complexity. For example, doing job descriptions become very important. Having a nice proper organization structures, etc., becomes
it.
very important, right? Defining clear roles.
Mhm.
Well, has this changed? I think it depends on the nature of the business and also where we are working in. But I think generally speaking, I think the world of work has changed quite a bit.
Mhm.
Instead of talking about complexity, I think today we are moving into a period of not just complexity, but really a period where things are not so static anymore.
Mhm.
The world is getting more volatile. That's where I'm coming from, right?
Mhm.
Thanks to some of these national competitions, sanctions, business are getting more and more, instead of globalization now,
Mhm.
you see a lot of tension between countries. So
Mhm.
globalization has taken a hit, and how that translates to HR then is that human resource management is slowly, or maybe have to pick up more speed now, to move from complexities to become more agile,
Okay.
right? In the way they do things. And what that means, I look at it, is that human resource management is entering into a period where change management,
Mhm.
right, becomes very, very important. You need to make sure
Okay.
people are not just, specialists, but at the
Mhm.
same time, generalists. And also you got to create a new mindset in
Mhm.
your human resource, your people, to be more adaptable instead
Okay.
of being very rigid. So that's how I see. And how that translate into the work of human resource, therefore, is that probably in the various human resource functions, things may need to be tweaked, or
Mhm.
some areas need to change quite a lot more.
Mhm.
Uh,
I see. So, if I try to summarize, you are saying that maybe in the 1970s, 1980s, the world was more predictable, static,
mhm.
more like manufacturing, a lot of planning,
Yep.
and then maybe starting in the 1980s, and especially uh, 2010 onward, uh, the the world, the business situation become more volatile. I think there was the term for that, right? Uh, Volatile, changing, ambiguous.
VUCA work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yep,
Mhm.
yep. And thus, HR also need to change, need to adapt.
Yep.
Uh, and you mentioned about activities like job description, which was what a lot of HR did in the 1980s, 1990s,
Yep.
maybe up to the early 2000s.
Yep.
Uh, but what does that mean? Does it mean that in today's world, in today's workplace situation, workplace organization, we don't need to define the jobs, the responsibilities anymore? HR doesn't need to do that, or how is it implemented?
Okay, that's a good question. But what I'm trying to say is that it is not about you. We don't need to do job description anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
what I mean is that job description, you need to change a bit,
I
in the
see.
sense that things are not so static, not so rigid,
Mm-hmm.
right? Career
Mm-hmm.
development is not so easily defined like a ladder anymore,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
also, employee retention is a big challenge facing many
Mm-hmm.
companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even career development uh, is unlike in the past, where you can define a very nice career ladder, but today, this doesn't work anymore.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So That means related to the changing world, HR also need to be to change, need to be more adaptable, agile,
That's right.
and but it sounds like the underlying of that is the user or customer oriented is still at the heart of HR.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that's also a very good point. So where I'm coming from is it's really what I'm seeing today in human resource management is that the ability of HR professional orchestrating or driving the organization to how to navigate all these paradoxes that is happening. So what do I mean by that, right? So in the past, right, yes, strategies is important. And what I'm trying to say, strategies today is also important, right? But the tension that we are facing today is that as much as you need to create good strategies, but you also need to be focused on operational effectiveness, right? Right?
Okay.
So this is one aspect of it. Then another aspect of looking at it is in the past, having stability in a sense, organization structure is important. Yes, you still need organization structure, but but you need a different type of structure whereby you can create some mobility within your workforce, right? And then to do that, what that means is that the skill sets of your people cannot be just, stay put in one role. But how do you move them around to pick up or create more exposure, opportunities for them to be able to be so agile to do a different work when required.
Okay. I don't want
So
to
these
get
are
into
these
too
are all
much.
the tension that I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the keyword that you have just mentioned, attention, because I was thinking it sounds like paradoxical.
That's right.
Instead of this or that, HR actually need to be to embrace both, and that is why the agility need to comes in.
All right. That's my point. Yep.
Another thing that I seems to hear is HR also need to go out of their ivory tower and get to understand more about the business, about the operation, rather than just being in their nice office by themselves.
Yep.
What's your experience about this, and how do you shape the next generation of HR, especially you as a lecturer, to understand, to help them to understand about this?
Right. So a simple example I can share with you is this. Well, probably in the past, maybe some of it still exists today. HR is seen as a policeman, right?
I see.
Right? Everyone is afraid of HR department. When you receive a telephone call from HR, employees will feel that something is wrong with me, right?
Or you
But
receive
then,
a warning letter.
that's right, right? But today we all know, right? HR is taking quite a big change in this role. Right? Today, human resource cannot function as a policeman anymore. In fact, when we use the word HR, I would even extend it to beyond the professionals in HR department. The professionals in HR department ought to be the orchestrator, the designer, but the real HR managers should be the line managers. So the change, therefore, I look at today, the function of HR is that how do we better equip or better enable line managers to really know how to manage people? Because in
Okay.
the past, line managers are recognized or even promoted primarily because that they are very good in solving problems. And so when we talk about problems, we are referring to work problems,
Mhm.
task problems. But today, they still need to solve this, but then they got to be even more effective in solving people problems. So
Okay.
this notion of people leadership, right, need to be strengthened, need to be developed a lot faster and a lot more.
Okay. Okay. But David, there are a lot of talks about the different generation.
Mhm.
I think we are called what, baby boomers or Gen X?
Gen X?
Gen X. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the HR practitioners nowadays, perhaps they are already at the millennial generation, those who were born between
Yep.
1981 to 1997, I think,
Right.
right? So if they were born in 1981, they are about what 30s, late 30s.
Mhm.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
oldest maybe about late 30s.
Mhm.
Then of course the Gen Z, a lot of complain or talk about how the millennials are and the Gen Z are different
Mhm.
from the previous generation, the Gen X and the Gen Y.
Mhm.
Uh, so especially when it comes to HR practitioner, especially when it comes to your role as a lecturer, what do you see about this millennial? This millennial, especially when millennial become or enter the career of HR professional.
Mhm. Well, okay, good question. You always ask me tough question, huh? Okay, like I mentioned, the world of work has changed,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
in the past, our complexities are all about structures, all about to be more efficient, effective, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
But today, it is more than that because today we are talking about probably 4 generations all working
Mm-hmm.
together. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
Then the
Mm-hmm.
second thing, of course, the rise of the millennials, and
Mm-hmm.
not to mention, technology has also come in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then also, of course, business cycles and all that are getting so much shorter and
Mm-hmm.
unpredictable. So
Mm-hmm.
what really that means is that I think for HR is a lot more focus, not on just getting the structures right, policies right, uh, procedures right, and all that, but
Mm-hmm.
really more towards, if I may put it this way, inverted comma, the softer touch. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, HR people needs to know how to manage emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not
Mm-hmm.
manage work. HR professional needs to
Mm-hmm.
understand the psychic,
Mm-hmm.
the reason behind why millennials are longing for work-life balance,
Mm-hmm.
asking for flexible work arrangement. But
Mm-hmm.
imagine if you are a HR leader and thinks that all these are not important and still think that being tough, rough and tough is the way to go, then I think you are missing
Mm-hmm.
a big opportunity to unleash the potential of the younger generations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, like the earlier I talked about tension. So in the past, uh, as much as we talk about we want diversity of ideas, and hey, today the young people they want diversity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you also need to manage this diversity and how to get them to converge, right? From divergence to convergence of their idea. In short, get things done, right? But so this kind of tension, right, would really mean that how adaptable are you? And to be in order to be adaptable, then HR needs to be very good in the structure systems, but you also need to be very good in the softer part, areas like EQ, areas like empathy, areas like looking at why, the young people are doing things or thinking about things very differently. So another example I share to my student is this. I mean, just look at politicians, generally speaking, right? Today, politicians realize that the way to engage their citizens, right? They have to be involved in the social media space, right? Sometimes we say that why are politicians acting cute, right? But this is
Your
the word that
your new PM playing guitar, right?
yes, right. So this is where I'm coming from is that hey, because the world has changed, right? Then how does HR think about creating a more engaging environment, and that translate into a more a better work culture in a company. Now that becomes it appears that this become something that is very pertinent, very important in companies today. Instead of being rigid, being just to get things done and all that. So gone are the days where you're talking about transactional management. Now we are talking about more than just transaction. We're really talking about how do you engage, how do you create, in fact, an experience for the employees.
I see. So what you're saying is like before, because the world has changed so much, adaptability, agility, and embracing paradox, those are also the qualities that the younger HR leader need to embrace, need to possess, and actually become the model, the role model for all the other line leaders.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Last question. You have been in the various position in corporate, in consultancy, and in various organization, public sector, MNC, and various countries. What advice can you give to HR in Indonesia, especially maybe Indonesian HR can learn from the success of Singapore as a country?
Okay. I think I wouldn't want to say specifically towards Indonesians, because I must admit I may not know Indonesian culture well. What I can share is that I think generally speaking, based on my regional experience, having even worked for MNCs that manage 40 nationalities altogether, I think one key thing that Indonesians can learn is always be teachable, always hunger to learn, and as much as today we talk a lot about, even in Singapore, skills future, encouraging the citizens to learn more. But I think Indonesians are also very hunger to learn a lot more things. But I think what would give Indonesians a clear advantage would really be rather than just focus on learning or knowing more, maybe you can think about doing more. Because until you understand, say you learn a concept about agility, right? But you won't what actually agile HR is until you tried it out.
I see.
Right? If not, it's just we are good in talking, right? But then we are not so good in executing. Putting this new concept called agile leadership or agile HR into practice. The same thing again. I mean, I have taught in the school about using HR analytics and all that. Well, they are learning a lot of new tools, right? About analytics. But my same advice to Indonesians is this. Yes, I think you should, in fact, you must learn some of these new tools, new skills, because the world is changing, right? But after you learn these skills, then you think about how do you apply analytics into your performance management system, for example, right? This is where in many companies today, I see the big gap. They know about analytics, but they do not know how to apply it, right? So how, then of course, the next big things today, we are talking about AI, right? I think HR is now, trying to apply AI or learning AI. But I think you still need to take one step at a time. Yes, it's good to learn about artificial intelligence, but after learning artificial intelligence, whether it's learning how to do coding and all that, try to apply it into one of your function as a start. Then you understand, right? Then you pick up experience as a result. So that's where I would advise Indonesians to do it. At my age today, I'm still learning, AI. I'm still learning analytics. Or in fact, I'm still networking with a lot of my HR contemporaries like you, Vincent, to understand what are the new things that's happening, right?
Okay, thank you very much, Pak David. So the learning, the advice is we need to continue learning and then apply or execute that learning into a real world practice,
Right.
because otherwise it's just a nice discussion, attending seminar, but without implementation, without execution, again, there's not much value HR contribute to the business then.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. In fact, I would even advise the HR manager or leaders in the company is that if you are still sending your people for training, then just do one simple thing, right? As part of your evaluation. What is one thing you would want your people to apply after they have attended a course?
I see.
I think that would be good enough, right? Yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, maybe we can conclude our discussion today. Thank you very much again. Then, as you have just said, I hope listeners can learn from Pak David, and then of course, as Pak David has advised, translate and execute that learning into our real world practices.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you again,
Vincent,
and have a great day.
Yeah. Have a great weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.